Welcome to the Star Chamber. I'm Ryan Swayze, a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel and the founder and president of the Walk the Talk Foundation, a nonprofit that advocates for and advises currently serving and former military service members going through the arduous journey of administrative processes and investigations in our government.
And I am Francescagraham, a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Advisor for the Walk the Talk Foundation. For all our returning guests, welcome back. And for our new listeners, thank you for tuning in. Before we begin this week's topic, please do not forget to hit that subscribe button, check out our Walk the Talk Foundation website, and hit that donate button if you think we're doing a good job. Also, check out our newsletter, the DoD Times Redacted, on all the socials, including LinkedIn, X, Instagram, and Facebook. Links in the description. All right, Star Chamber listeners, let's get started. Welcome back, Star Chamber listeners, to another mini episode of the Star Chamber. Really appreciate everyone joining us today. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the issue of futility. And this idea was brought forward to me again during a conversation with some members of our team as we were working on our communication strategy to achieve our foundation's vision, with that vision being to realize uniformed services free from opaque and unjust administrative systems of redress and justice. And the gentleman who's leading those conversations, he asked a very important question. It was, what are some of the most significant factors obstructing our desired state from coming into existence? And the team, of course, very quickly started listing off obstructions to achieving our desired state or a vision. One of them being that we would assess that there's cultural resistance within the Department of Defense and the Coast Guard to change, because that change is considered a threat to the status quo and a criticism of the way things have been done in the past. Another potential obstruction is a possible perception amongst our legislative body that our objectives, including mandatory training for all command and point investigating officers and uniform training for our inspectors general, could contribute to bureaucratic growth or could contribute to a distraction from warfighting. And then the final one that I'll cover, although we have several more than this, but just one for this podcast that I'll cover, is you could argue there is a distance between the American public and the military, in that the American public is somewhat divorced from the realities of the military and in a way somewhat divorced from caring about the military, with the exception of thanking our troops at the baseball games and ensuring veterans have different benefits and whatnot. But the day-to-day of what it is to be in the military, one could argue that the American public is somewhat divorced from that for several reasons, which I think we've covered in several other podcasts. So the question that was raised as the team was listing off these obstructions to, or potential obstructors to achieving our vision, the gentleman leading the group said, okay, well, why are we doing this? Why do we keep going? It seems the issues obstructing our vision are so massive. Why do we keep going? And it brought me back to an article that I wrote several months ago called The Issue of Futility. And we hear this quite a bit at the foundation, which is, why are you fighting against the United States government? Don't you know that they are too big, too corrupt, and they have the money to win? They have the lawyers because of the Westfall Act. They can use the Department of Justice. You can't. Your pocketbook isn't that big, and why are you willing to incur that risk? And our response, and I would argue that our response is there's nothing heroic about it. It's just that it's as simple as we think it is the right thing to do. We think it is the right thing to fight for justice within these administrative processes for our service members, for our men and women, that 1% who are tasked with the national security of our nation. We think that that is worth it. And the question that I've asked myself quite a bit, and I think a lot of people ask, is not only is it worth the fight, I think the answer is yes, but is what you're fighting for, is fighting for what is right without risk? And the flat answer is no, it's not. It's never without risk. And one of the things that I talked about in the article that I wrote several months ago is if you consider some examples of fighting for what is right that costs lives, time, and money, and you say, okay, who fought those things? Was it a bunch of heroes? Was it a bunch of, superheroes flying around in capes and all of that? No, it absolutely was not. It was a bunch of very ordinary, hardworking, passionate, intelligent people who decided that whatever they were fighting for was worth the risk. And furthermore, decided that whatever they were fighting for, even if they did not achieve it in their lifetime, that it was worth the risk and it was worth their time. It was worth the talents that they have to use those talents towards something that they thought was worthwhile. Some examples that we can look at as Americans is the fighting for independence from England, the creation of the U.S. Constitution, the abolishment of slavery, women winning the right to vote, African Americans winning equal rights under the law. Women winning the right to vote is something that I think back to quite a bit. It took nearly 100 years of fighting, of advocacy, of newsletters, of political gambling within Washington, D.C., of food starvation, of going to prison, of a lot of different, very, very things that we consider extreme and out there for women to achieve something so simple as to be considered a full citizen within the United States and to earn the right to vote. None of those fights came cheap, none of them that I spoke to, but the women one to me is very, very dear. And I think about it quite a bit, and I think about that in perspective of the work that we do at the foundation. All of us would like to have the quick wins that has been beaten into our head through organizational leadership and business classes and leadership classes for the last 20 years. You have to get the quick wins. You have to get the quick wins. And if you don't get the quick wins, then it's not worth it, and it's not worth the risk. Quick wins are great. What we're doing with the foundation, we recognize are not quick wins, but we believe that they are the right thing to do for our servicemen and women and for our nation. We would submit that the Department of Defense and the Coast Guard is more powerful than you or I. We know that. But so too is the British military more powerful than the colonists, the slaveholders more powerful and more united than the abolitionists, the anti-suffragist movement better financed, placed, and more powerful than the suffragist movement, and the separate but equal faction more powerful than those who fought against the corrosive ideologies of human beings can be separate but equal. But our heroes, these men and women whom we admire, from our history within America or from our history from around the world, determined that their understanding of what is right mattered more than the power imbalances and the risks that they faced. They mattered more than the factors that obstruct their vision, the vision of what they think is right. Will is what mattered, and endurance. And that is what we at the foundation are we're working every day, sometimes even through our own exhaustion. That is what we are bringing to this fight that we believe is just. And I'm going to do something that I've never done before. So for those of you who attended classes for this sort of thing, you will forgive my butchering of this rendition of one of my favorite poems. It's by Rudyard Kipling. It's called If. And I showed it recently to a friend who was retiring, and he was retiring from long-time service in the military, and he had also spent quite a bit of time within the Ranger Regiment. And he reads a lot of books on self-help and leadership and all of this stuff. And I showed him this poem. He had never read it before. And he looked at me after he finished reading it. He said, "My God," he said, "every single thing that I've ever read is summed up in those 4 little paragraphs." So I'm going to read you that poem. And again, I've never done this before in public, so you'll forgive me if it sounds grotesque. But here we go. Rudyard Kipling, the poem If. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise, if you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those 2 impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build him up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there's nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on, if you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. One of my very favorite poems, Rudyard Kipling, If. Thank you for listening to today's mini episode. And we believe in our servicemen and women. We believe that they deserve better than what they have now, and that there is a way and a will to achieve our vision to realize uniformed services free from opaque and unjust administrative systems of redress and justice. Have a great day. Bye. Well, that's it for this week's topic. We really appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and check out our foundation website at walkthetalkfoundation.org.
And feel free to reach out and give us feedback. You can get a hold of us via Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and our foundation's website. Details in the description section. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next episode.